This is the No BS Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Shanks. In this show, we look behind the curtain of financial services to find answers to the biggest questions no one is asking. Join me as I welcome industry influencers, outside business leaders, and inspirational game changers for real, no BS conversations that will challenge you to think big. I want to motivate you to find purpose and fulfillment in your career. Now on to the show. Happy Friday, everyone. This is Ryan Shanks, your host of the No BS Podcast. I'm really excited today to welcome and introduce you to our guest, which happens to be a really good friend of mine and happens to be my co-founder for FA Match, Eric Savage. Eric, how are you, bud?
Pretty good, man. Nice to join you on this.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So as I had just kind of alluded to, the whole topic that we want to talk about today is the bullshit recruiters don't tell you. Right. And the whole driver for this show is really about very real conversations. And, you and I are obviously in the business, and this is sort of a component of what we do, but there's a lot of elements in terms of what recruiters don't tell you, meaning the financial advisor in a lot of instances, and sometimes the firms. And so today we really want to get into that, right? We want to cut through it. And so let's kind of jump right in. So I think, one of the elements that I'd like to kind of just start off with is around conflicts. Right. So, what recruiters won't tell you, one of the elements that I think is really important is if there's a firm they're planning to refer you to who might pay them more than other firms that they have an agreement with. What are your thoughts about that?
I think financial advisors as a whole, in my experience in this business, is they tend not to have any idea how a recruiter actually gets paid. And the mechanical process by which a recruiter does get paid is kind of backwards in that it sort of disincents the recruiter from representing the needs of the advisor. It's a pretty common misperception that, the financial advisor is a client of the recruiters, but that's in fact backwards in most cases. The client is the firm and the advisor is the product. And this conflict around who gets paid and how much, some firms pay more than others. That's just the bottom line. And, everybody's got bills to pay. These people in this business are real people with real mortgages. And if they've got an opportunity to get paid 8% instead of 6%, what do you think they're going to do?
And then for the listeners, I want you to, there's some clear math in the industry that's really been kind of a standard pillar for a long time. And the way that the fees are normally calculated is 6% off of revenue or 6 basis points off of assets, right? Based upon assets that move over. And what we're really alluding to here is that these recruiters might go out and create sort of a special agreement at 8 points versus 6. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a recruiter getting paid a fair shake. Where the bullshit comes in is when the recruiter does not disclose to that advisor that this firm that I'm really kind of strong arming you to go on a date with is who's paying me more, right? I think that's really the point we want to get across is not all recruiters are bad people, but we think that particular practice has no place in the business. And I'm 100% with you. We chat about this all the time. Let's talk about some of the other conflicts, right? What's some of the other BS that, that recruiters won't tell you?
Just in general, sometimes let's call them a mid-sized to a large size firm. Getting new clients is hard, and it's a lot cheaper in some cases to grow inorganically by bringing on new talent, et cetera. And to further supercharge the process of bringing on new advisor talent and new money onto the books, you might offer an advisor a financial stake in your practice as part of the payment for recruiting services. So in that situation, you end up with a recruiter who's actually got an equity stake that is unknown to their advisors that they're working with in the firm that they're trying to send the advisor to and get them to go on a date with, right? That's a pretty darn deep conflict. It's kind of hard to get around. I mean, at the very least, maybe if such things were disclosed, it might be one thing, but here you are, an advisor working with the recruiter, and they're telling you you're a magnificent fit at this firm. And they, by the way, have an equity stake in that firm. So of course they're interested in you going there. That gets them paid and increases the value of their position. So what are they going to do, right?
How would that make you feel, right? I think about that. I think, again, there's nothing wrong with someone being paid fairly. But if it's not disclosed, and frankly, let's just talk about for a moment if it is disclosed. Do you think it discredits that firm?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it has to discredit the firm. I don't think it has to be a bad thing. But at the very least, it would be cards on the table. It would be above board. It's not quite one of those things that falls under the category of a lie, but it certainly is a half truth, and it should be represented. I think if I, as the advisor, found the value prop of the firm to be a great value prop, and they supported all the existing business that I do, and I was a good cultural fit, and I actually like the people, I don't think it would dissuade me necessarily. But where I think I would chafe a little bit is if, this firm obviously isn't a good fit for me, and and someone keeps trying to ram it down my throat. That's where the disclosure comes in, because now all of a sudden I'm going to understand, oh, you've got a pretty big incentive to try to send me over here. I know why you're trying so hard, but I actually want to go someplace else.
Yeah, well, and I think where it really hits home is the advisor. First of all, if there is no disclosure, they have no clue, right? And genuinely, a huge element in this industry is most advisors don't know what they don't know. And a recruiter goes and engages with them, and they convince them to go on a journey. And one of the other things that I think that is the bullshit recruiters don't tell you: how are they getting paid? What are they getting paid? Right? I talk to advisors all the time, and they're like, I don't have a clue how a recruiter gets paid. And I said, well, here's the simple math, right? So if you're at 200 million in assets, that recruiter you've chosen to trust is going to make $120,000. Now, the question you need to ask is that recruiter going out and conducting sort of broad due diligence specific for you, kind of like a financial advisor would do for a particular client and the needs that client has? Or are they going out and saying, well, you know what? I've got this little bucket over here of all the same damn products, the same selling agreements with firms. I'm going to pick this one that I think is a fit for every advisor.
And I bet it's the one that pays the most, the soonest, the best.
That's it, right? It's good payment terms for me. Maybe it's all up front. Maybe it's a larger fee. Exactly.
Well, I mean, let's talk about where these contracts with firms come from. How do we as financial advisor recruiters, how does the industry source those agreements to pay for candidates to come in the door? You got to go out and chase those down. You got to spend time on the phone. You got to run through legal. You got to redline agreements. Most of the time, it's some large firm that says, you can sign our master agreement or we can't do business with you. And these contracts don't source themselves. They're an effort to get in the first place, and then they've got to be maintained because these agreements change. And if you're a financial advisor recruiter, you get paid for moving financial advisors. You don't get paid for going out and sourcing agreements. So what tends to happen is a recruiter might, I've got 10 agreements and 6 of them are cold as ice, and I haven't used them in 3 years, but I've got 4 of them that are pretty hot. I've got 4 national size growing firms, and they'll pretty much soak up all the talent I can throw at them. 2 of them pay me better than the others. So an advisor comes to me looking for their next home for their book of business. And I say, man, I've got a handful of great firms that I work with. And, 2 of them, I just think you'd be a slam dunk fit at. And then the reality of it is I've got 10 contracts as a whole, and I only use 4 of them. So is the advisor's interest really being represented at all there? There's more than 4 firms on the market. I hate to tell you. And, if you've only got 4 to look at, well, you're probably not really looking at the whole picture.
Well, and we're seeing this, and we've been seeing this evolution in the industry for a while now, really shifting towards a heavy fee-based business, if not all fee-based. And the definition of that is fiduciary, right? So what that really means is every single decision I will make is in the best interest of my client, which means I'm not conflicted by fee. It'd be something if that standard was applied in recruiting.
Yeah, and I think it's probably common for a fee-based financial advisor, considering they carry a fiduciary, and they look out for the interests of their clients. They sometimes mistakenly think that they are the client in this situation. And what do you think about that? You're not the one paying the bill. You're not the client.
What do you think about? It's interesting. I mean, I've been in this business a long time, and pre-COVID, travel and do a lot of sort of trips where, firms would bring in a bunch of different recruiters and they want to kind of tell their story. And here's some new things that we've got that are sort of cooking in the kitchen. We want you to be the first to be aware of it. And there's typically provided some perspective on what you see in the marketplace. And it's always fascinating me, the recruiters where, you're having a drink with them and they're not apologetic. They literally sit there and say, every single deal I close is based upon a firm that will write me the biggest check and they will write the advisor the biggest check, right? Now, that's a whole different conversation and probably a whole different episode around the conflicts that are money motivated in the business, right? Because you've got a recruiter that's motivated by that, but you also might have an advisor, right? That can't help it. Like, listen, if someone's offering it, shoot, I'll take it. And one of the things that really blows me up is when you see a repeat customer with the recruiter. meaning they've moved that advisor 2, 3 times in their career.
Churn, baby.
Churn, baby, churn, right? Like that's absolute bullshit.
Yeah, and think about the firms that are the clients in this case. I mean, not only are they not properly servicing the advisor, it's not of great value to me as a paying firm to a recruiter that, I'm gonna get this advisor and we're gonna have an introduction through you and you're gonna get paid. And 3 or 4 years later, that advisor is gonna move away from me again, courtesy of you. I don't know who wins in that but the recruiter.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, let's kind of back up for a moment. Let's talk about sort of what happens here, right? And I think one of the other items that recruiters don't tell you, right, and it's absolute BS, is if you're willing to get on a phone call with the recruiter and you're willing to share some information about you, your clients, your revenue, your assets, that recruiter is going to go to every damn contract they have and they're going to disclose your identity because they want to get it tagged in the CRM system. It's sort of an age old way that it's been done, right? It's like, hey, if you get tagged first, if we happen to hire them, you're going to get paid.
Well, in my industry, I've been in technology for the past 25 years, and we have a similar type of thing that is less prevalent now because enough people have been sued over it that the practice has been largely shut down. But if I'm on the phone, it's 10 o'clock on Monday morning, and a recruiter calls me, and I happen to take the call, and I say, "Yeah, I would be interested in hearing about this." Okay, well, here's my name. Let me send you a resume. Turns out, maybe I don't want to work with that recruiter, but 6 months later, I meet a friend at a happy hour that works at this company and, hey, you really ought to come in and meet my boss, the stakeholders. I think you'd be a really good fit here. And lo and behold, and I do, then I get a job offer and I'm starting at the company and they say, wait a minute, we got to pay a recruiter $40,000 to bring you on. I'm like, well, I didn't work with a recruiter to come in here. It's like, well, you've been submitted in the system. And now all of a sudden, instead of, hiring me for my new position, that's a great fit. Now all of a sudden they don't have a budget to pay the recruiter. And now I don't have the job anymore. And that commonly used to go on in technology, and the practice in financial services has not. Enough people haven't been sued over it yet, frankly.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think one of the other elements, right? The fee drives the majority of all recruiting in this business as it relates to a recruiter, right? It's not the fit. And I mean, I have personally experienced where we're working with significant teams and another recruiter calls the firm that we're conducting our due diligence with. Yeah, perhaps they've tagged us in their system, but we're adding real value and we're engaging in that. And they literally go to the firm and say, well, we've been talking to that group too. And they've asked, can you tag us instead of them?
You've been at this for a long time. And, when we talk about recruiters adding value and searching for fit over fee, which is not so common in your experience, what percentage of recruiters that you run into actually have a deep enough understanding of financial services to look at an advisor's practice and to look at a firm and see the points of compatibility and the points where there might be some friction and to say, this absolutely isn't a good fit. It took me a solid few years to come across a great many of these nuances. And I'm curious how many recruiters in this business that you've run across actually have a deep enough understanding to be able to provide any value in that transition.
So that's an interesting question. The broad answer is about 10%. But if you dig down deeper, there are some recruiters that really have incredible knowledge, but it's very silo specific. So it may be that they know everything about the independent broker dealer environment, but they're not that familiar with RIAs or RIA hybrids, right? So what you end up seeing is most recruiters are like, oh, I want to go and I've got a breakaway. So it's straight to custody. Eric, you should go start your own RIA. And you're sitting there going, what the hell? I don't want to go start a company. I don't want to deal with compliance and technology and people and real estate.
Yeah, because it's so easy. It's almost free, right? And you get paid more. Hey.
And again, the advisor doesn't really know any different, right? No one's slowing down the conversation. The recruiter's not saying, hey, Eric, are you comfortable with all this risk? Have you ever worn any of these hats and would you be any good at them? That conversation never happens, right? Because what you end up finding is if that recruiter was really knowledgeable, they would help you to understand the risk you're comfortable taking. And they'd probably reach a conclusion that, you know what, Eric, shit, man, you shouldn't start your own RIA. You should go join this RIA. Or you should look at joining an RIA because they want to be in the business of wearing all those hats. And oh, by the way, they've worn them for 15 years pretty well, right? Would you like to bump out early and go coach your kids' soccer game?
And you know what a lot of people don't think about is running a business is a lot of activities and a lot of hat wearing that does not translate directly into servicing your clients. It's really just excess friction for a lot of people. Independence is not for everybody. Just plain and simple.
So again, this episode is the bullshit recruiters don't tell you, and we're not. It's important that we make sure that the listeners understand that we're not trying to sort of throw everybody under the bus, but what we are doing is we're saying there's an absolute difference, and the goal that I think we really want to get across is to the financial advisors is you need to be able to understand if who you're looking to work with is in the conflict lane or not, is knowledgeable enough to add incredible value for you, which might be helping you determine whether you build it or you join it, right? But it's not just, I'm going to grab you and a little bit of information and I'm going to send an email over to Bob's firm because Bob's my buddy, right? We go out and have beers every weekend. And, you're going to like Bob. Bob's a likable guy. You're going to move all your clients over to Bob's firm. And in about 6 to 9 months, you're going to realize that 40% of what you needed for your clients, they don't have. And that was the recruiter's job to determine whether they've got the elements that you need, right? I always view it as don't make a transition if it's a lateral move because it's a pain in the ass. You got to get clients. You got to get them to move. You got to move the accounts over. The investments have to move in a lot of instances. It's a lot of work. If you're going to do it, it should be promotional in nature that you're going to have more to access for your clients. Maybe it's an income improvement, right? Maybe it's a quality of life improvement. Maybe there's elements you want to do for the client that you can't do where you are. But I think what we've really hit on today is that there are tremendous conflicts in this space, right? This is the vertical that we live in. I've kind of invited you in. I'm glad you've decided to come with me on this journey as a technical person. But, at the end of the day, it's about transparency. It's about there not being a card that's hidden under the table, that it's all open.
I mean, it's all been very eye-opening, and I don't know if we've ever discussed before, but a lot of these things, that we're talking about today, I came to find out and absorb over the course of the past 2 years, and I have been quite shocked of some of the things that I feel like in a lot of situations, you might be dealing with an advisor that maybe hasn't made a move before, and the weight of the moving process and the importance of a lot of the factors of qualifying and is this firm really a good fit? A lot of those things are underrepresented, and the advisor a lot of times doesn't have any idea that what they're going to do is actually going to be a lot more difficult than what they bought in for. And I just don't think that is adequately communicated. It doesn't have to be that way, but it needs to be put on the table and where everybody can see it and have the light shine on it. So that way we're all on the same page, eyes wide open. More of that needs to happen.
Yeah. And the tough thing is, right? I mean, I get it, right? If a firm is paying more, if a firm's giving equity to a recruiter, it's all in an effort to try to get more of the lead flow to come their direction. Again, not all recruiters are willing to sell out like that, but we've seen that a number of them are willing to, right? And I think that the point we're trying to make here is if you're a firm in this industry and you've got tremendous value you provide to advisors, I would love to see there be an equal playing field in terms of what the compensation looks like to recruiters, right? So there is no incentive to go to this firm versus another. We're obviously trying to sort of just blow all that out by saying it should be at a much lower cost, right? And philosophically, I think that if a firm could acquire that opportunity and that talent and that revenue at a fraction of the cost, you could turn around and reinvest it in the business, right? You could turn around and put it into the advisor's deal. But at the end of the day, a lot of recruiters view an advisor, which is a human being, as a pawn. And I'm going to move this pawn in the straightest line possible, the shortest distance possible for the maximum outcome financially for myself.
Yeah. And, like everyone else, people do their jobs to make a living, to support their family, to pay their mortgage and keep everybody fed. So I don't really think that the people doing this can be blamed. The economists like to refer to this as a perverse incentive, such that, I'm incented to do something that, maybe isn't in anybody's best interest but my own. But nonetheless, that is how I get paid. And that's what I do for a living, just like anybody else. So that's what I'm going to do. And it probably is the fastest way to get a check in your bank account. It probably is the fastest way to make the most money. Naturally, selling your services at the highest price to the most willing payer. That's really what we're all out to do anyway, isn't it? But it does not serve the needs of the financial advisor. And the financial advisor falsely believes that they are the client in this scenario, and they're just not.
Right. Well, think about suitability. right? If you're a financial advisor and you have proven that you disregard suitability for the client and you put the investments based upon the greater financial gain to you, there's a
Right.
regulation, there's a regulating body out there, depending upon the construct of how you do business, that is there to police that. We don't have that as it relates to what we do. And I'm not saying that there should be someone in there policing it, but I think from a social contract perspective, that is something that we're trying to get out there is that, listen, hold yourself to a high standard. If you're going to be in this business and you're going to try to help advisors make a move, be forthcoming with all the information. Let them know that I've only got 5 contracts. I don't have a lens into the entirety of the landscape. I can help you if one of these scenarios really resonates with you. Oh, by the way, if we talk to XYZ over here, they're going to pay me a little bit more than the others. Right? Like, I don't understand that. I know that, through the years, as I've done reporting to the advisors we've worked with, one of the items that we spreadsheet out, so we go through all the items that matter to them in what order of priority, right? Give me 10 things that are important to you and let's prioritize them. The final line item is the fee the firms will pay that have qualified to earn the advisor's trust in business. So it's there. This firm might pay less, this firm might pay more, but it's there. And I think that that's more of a practice that the industry should be thinking about. And the other thing that you've got is you got a lot of clowns that are getting into this business and like, hey, I got let go at this job, so I'm gonna fire up XYZ recruiting and I'm gonna go get these 3 contracts because they paid 10% up front. And every damn advisor I talk to is going to go to this firm only.
And that's nothing but a zero value add cash grab. That is just, that's not going to serve the firms because they're not going to get, I mean, maybe they'll get what they want in terms of assets under management coming over and getting on their books, but I don't know. I don't think anybody comes out of those deals happy.
Is there anything else that you think maybe we're kind of missing? I mean, I think we're,
oh man, half a dozen things. Yeah. I mean, we've been at this for, you've been at it for, the majority of your career. You brought me into this about 3 years ago. I've learned so much since then. Yeah, I think that there's a set of incentives out there. And I think that there is sort of a dark market for financial advisor talent out there that, if you're a financial advisor and you're looking to make a move in the first place, you've actually got a pretty big problem. So you pretty much have to trust somebody. And, oftentimes that turns out to be a financial advisor recruiter, and they've got the deals that they've got. And, they're really just trying to get you tagged. And you're going to these types of situations thinking, I go to an expert mechanic to fix my car. I go to a specialist if I've got a physical problem, and I go to a specialist if I need help, transitioning my book to a place where I'm going to be happier. And, the recruiters might do well to be a little more upfront about, what their obligations are and how their bread gets buttered. I don't think it would change a lot of things, but the advisor would know, and things that are above board just smell a little better to me personally.
Well, listen, brother, man, this has been a lot of fun. I'm so glad we were able to do this together. And, I love you. I'm so glad that we're in this business together. And, it's these are the types of conversations we have all the time because we're good friends first and we're business partners second. And, I think, kind of in parting, I think part of what we want to make sure we leave to the listeners is, again, we focused our emphasis on the advisors, but on the firm side, we didn't really spend much time there, but, there's small and mid-tier firms out there that, from an affordability perspective, they're telling me, I'm talking to recruiters and they're like, yep, sorry, here's our fee. They're lying to them. They're saying, oh, the standard fee is 8 points or 10 points. So it sucks because some of the folks that are trying to get a leg up, they got a good story. They got a great culture. They just need a chance. Nobody's willing to give them a look, right? Traditional recruiters not willing to sign an agreement because, well, they're lying and saying the standard fee is twice what it really is, right? So there's no transparency there. They're taking advantage of that small firm. And I think that that's the other element of this is that it's not just for the advisor, but it's also for the firm. If you're going to look to align with a recruiter, ask them some of those tough questions, right? Countless times firms like, we've got 5 contingency agreements. 2 of the recruiters never send us a lead, or if they do, they send us a lead with an advisor that's got 4 or 5 compliance marks, right? They're high risk.
Yeah. And, there are mid-sized and smaller boutique firms out there with a great value proposition. And a lot of recruiters recognize that this firm's probably only going to want to do 1 or 2 people, for the next 5 years. They're a small boutique firm and they intend to stay that way. I can't place 15 advisors over the next year at this firm. Maybe it's not worth my time trying to service this mid-size or small boutique RIA that has a great value proposition. Firms like that are really, really underserved in the way business is done today.
What would you leave as sort of parting advice for the listeners as we kind of roll into the weekend?
I would ask everybody to ask what value they're getting out of the transaction. If you're a firm working with a financial services recruiter, ask very clearly what value you're getting out of this. I could buy a list of people. I could call. I could say, hey, do you want to move to my firm? That's going to take me some time. I'm going to have to spend some money. It's going to be a distraction. But on the other hand, the work that you want done correctly, it's usually best to do it yourself, right? And unfortunately, that's just prohibitive for firms because they don't know how to recruit. They're in financial advisory practices, right? Ask what the value proposition that you're getting out of your relationship with the recruiter is. The advisor side needs to do that. The firm side needs to do it. And some of the value should be fit, because fit is ultimately what matters to both sides of that transaction. And, firms spend a lot of time talking about the fee. Advisors spend a lot of time probably asking questions because they've maybe never made a move before. Maybe they don't understand the move process, but ask what value you're getting out of the transaction from the recruiter, and ask how the recruiter is compensated in the event that you make a move to one of these firms. They'll be very simple answers. And I'll tell you what, if the right answer is usually a simple answer. If the answer you get isn't simple, it's probably not the right answer.
Listen, brother, thank you again, man. This has been so much fun. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, thanks, man. Good times.
Don't miss any of the No BS podcast with Ryan Shanks. All you need to do is follow the show to know when the latest episode is ready, and be sure to share with colleagues and friends. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of FA Match. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only.